Welcome to this edition of Jason Campbell's Studio Podcast. For this edition of our podcast, we are tackling the subject of digital influencers, and we have Chloe Watts, who is the founder and CEO of Chloe Digital, a London-based digital consulting agency, who is going to weigh in on this subject for us today, Chloe. Welcome to our podcast, Chloe.
Thanks for having me.
I just want to dive right into it.
Let's do it.
What does influence mean in this digital age?
I think it means a lot of things to a lot of different people, because to me, I think influence before was the very funneled vision we have of the influencer. So it was your magazine, it was a celebrity, it was what people told us who we should be influenced by. Now, influencers it's been democratized, so anybody can be your influencer. It went down from the celebrity, like your Beyonce's, of course our Beyonce still influences us, but it was only them, to your cool it girls, to now your bloggers, your Instagram stars, etc. But I think it's going even beyond that, because now for the younger generation, their influencer is the cool girl at school, or that girl within her close community, and not necessarily somebody who's far away and disattainable to them.
So you're saying that whole playing field has been totally democratized, that anyone can enter this arena and level and influence on a wide audience of people?
I do think they can influence. So when you come down to what is your end goal for influence, is it to influence 10 million people? Of course you'd be in a different space than it would be to influence 10 people. So I think there's a misconception of, to be an influencer, you have to influence a wide mass of people, and I don't necessarily feel like that's the case.
Part of the architectural team of the influencers,
yeah.
What specific role do you play in their careers?
So we really help them understand why they want to be an influencer, where they want to take their businesses, like what's kind of the legacy that they're trying to build out of being an influencer. And then from that, help them understand their audience, help them understand why people follow them, like why do people attach themselves to what they have to say, why do they see them as an authority. Understand that in order to be able to provide products and services and better engage with those people.
These influencers may enter this arena without necessarily fully understanding the scope of what they can do.
Yeah, most people don't, and they still don't.
Yeah. And so you guys step into that role of formalizing, to some extent, their working world.
Exactly. We've got a lot of data out there in terms of how people are interacting with you as an influencer. How can we break down that data for you to understand what's working and what's not working?
You mentioned data.
Yeah.
So it's really about that back-end information.
Yes.
How you can use that powerful set of information to power their efforts.
Exactly. So for me, it's part of gut instinct as to what you think is right, coupled with the data as to what's actually working. Data through colored lens can look completely different, right? So some people will think that, because on Instagram people love when I talk about X, that's all I should do. But then like on their blog, they love when I talk about Y. So sometimes you have to kind of look at where you're coming from and what's the angle of the data to truly interpret it.
Is this all about youth culture? Are we talking about 20-somethings, 30-something, 40-something, and 50-somethings that are playing in this field?
Yes.
Really?
Oh, yes.
So your client base spans
it's wild. It goes from 18 all the way into mid-50s, early 60s.
You hear about the YouTube stars, that's a lane that seems to be very well defined. People understand, the stars that are there and their reach. Talk about the other platform. Instagram, of course, is now one of the more active platforms, but are they playing in all the arenas? They're on Twitter, they're on Facebook. All of this really factors into the influencer profile?
It's difficult because they feel, and sometimes it's a burden, they feel like they have to be on every platform to be deemed a success. You have to be able to find them everywhere. But for us, we don't necessarily feel like that is a concern. If Pinterest isn't really your game, then don't worry about it. Focus more energy on Instagram. If Instagram isn't so much your game, don't worry about it, focus more energy on your blog. And that goes back to understanding your audience. But when you kind of start in this game, a lot of the time you start for fun, so you're just kind of everywhere, just doing the best that you can. And then eventually, as you grow as a business, you start to feel like, okay, actually, makes more sense for my business, this is where I can apply my time, and this is where I go. I think Instagram is amazing for what it's done, but it is going into its new phase as a business, and therefore...
But wait, it's going into a new phase? Define this new phase as you see it.
Now the new phase is the monetization phase.
Okay.
So how you had Facebook or Pinterest or whatever, they have to monetize their business, and everyone needs to understand that, you know, it's not going to be the same. Like, why would you just let somebody use your platform forever for free and make money off of it? That doesn't make sense. So that's okay, that's not a problem, but you have to play them at their own game. So you understand this is happening, and you have to think, okay, well, I've created this audience here. I'll probably never be able to get one for one of those people over to my own site, but I should try to find an engaged amount of those people to be in a place that I can control.
Drilling down still yet on the profile of these influencers, what's the difference between the self-proclaimed ones and the authentic? Well, no, I don't want to use that word authentic. No, that's actually unfair. But the self-proclaimed one and say the clear, tried and true authorities.
An element of being self-proclaimed, it's like you have to be self-proclaimed to a certain point for people to know that you are an authority in the thing that you do. So I had to be self-proclaimed a bit for people to trust me in what I'm doing. But then you have other people who kind of worked in industry and they had certain titles and they built up a profile, so they were the editor of this or they were whatever, and then they became influencers off the back of that. But then you have a lot of the influencers, which are most of our clients, where they became influential only from them just living their lives, which is incredible to see, and them living their best lives. But you know, you have to be the influencer, you have to be able to put yourself out there. Otherwise, no one will be able to see that this is what you're pushing, so to speak.
And this begs the question now: is it just about a popularity contest?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. I think the media right now about influencers is very one-sided, and it's very like vanity. So it's like, oh, now Instagram has sponsored, now this has happened, now this has happened. But for me, because we speak to them on such an intimate level, I know their hopes and dreams are a lot deeper than being popular, and their hopes and dreams and what they want to build for their businesses is a lot deeper than having 10 million followers on Instagram. You know, of course, that can help you get somewhere, but if you don't know where it's going to help you get, then kind of what's the point? And that's a messaging that we always teach. Like, where are we trying to go with this? And how can we also use the influence that we're building for a positive effect on the world in some way? Say someone does beauty and she's talking about a skin condition that she had, and therefore she got bullied at school, and then she found this amazing brand that did really well for her, and it changed her appearance and how she felt, and then she put that across in her content, and that made another girl feel good. So when she then went to college, work or whatever, she then wore that makeup and then she felt good, and then she then did, you don't know what her job is, her job could be helping small kids, and therefore now she's feeling good. And it may seem superficial beauty, but it's not, because when people feel good about themselves, they then do their best in the world.
There is, however, a great deal of trust that is imparted to these influencers. Are they worthy?
They are worthy. I think if you put everybody in a bracket, it's like saying, are people in general worthy? Not everybody. Not everybody acts up. Some people do good things, some people do bad things, right? Yes. So we can't put influencer to be like one specific person and this is how they're acting. Of course, some people do good things, some people don't. But in terms of the abilities that they have to be able to be an authority to somebody and for people to trust them, the ones that work hard are definitely worthy. And there are some that work incredibly hard and harder than you could ever imagine. To me, when I see the hard work that goes and the hustle that goes into behind the scenes, yes, I do think they're worthy.
And the word that is bandied about when you're talking about influencers is authenticity. Why are they considered to be the more of an authentic source of inspiration and direction than, say, advertising?
When blogging first started, it was real people who would go to the shows and give a real opinion. And that was fashion blogging was very much about fashion week, etc. And then it moved into very personal and lifestyle space of just talking about your life, talking about your husband, talking about your problems, talking about all these different things, and connecting with people. So that then added the authenticity, because they would just share their lives. Like, people share when they've had struggles getting pregnant, or like death, or all these different crazy things that happen to everybody in life that other people can read and relate to and feel like, wow, like, you know, I didn't know that you could help me in such a way because I didn't even know you, but because you speak so authentically and so true, I trust in you.
You mentioned the fashion space just now. There has been a bit of a blowback, I would say, in that arena, more so than any other space that I have seen.
Yeah.
Is it a case of sour grapes, shift in paradigm that's happening, and fashion is slow to change and is not necessarily embracing of this? Give me your perspective on why do you think the fashion industry is not as warm to these influencers?
I mean, when you have such a strong institution, and then something from completely out of the blue just comes in and shifts everything that you know, of course you're going to be kind of taken aback. Now you have the people who kind of stay put, and then you have the innovators. If you don't innovate in business in general, you'll be left behind, as we know that by many businesses that we have grown up on that do not exist now because of the internet. So if that's the same for any different type of industry, as I said. So I think for the ones who have kind of sour grapes or whatnot, it's the ones who don't want to innovate. And if you're going to sit there and like feel that way, then you will be left behind. But if you innovate and connect, then you will still be a front runner, because all those traditional businesses have such strong brand names that before, when these girls first started, they would have died to be connected to them in any type of way form. So when they just shaft them to the side, like, okay, cool, well, now I don't need you, I'll then go ahead and do my thing. But if they never did that, they would have become even more powerhouses, because they would have embraced it. To me, I feel like that's just so old hat, because it's like you're neglecting other people's talents because you need to put them into this pigeonhole.
In terms of the KPI, the key performance indicator, is it a conversion? Is it engagement? Is it both?
Good question. So for them, their key performance indicators are based on different things. So if you are trying to monetize through your affiliates, then your key performance indicator will be your conversion rate. That's one thing specifically. Okay. If you're trying to grow an engaged audience, maybe that your KPI then is for people to spend more time on your site and engage in your content. So it goes back down to the goals.
For influencers generated content, do they have greater engagement with influencer generated content?
Yes, they do. They've got great engagement. But it's all going back to kind of building your community, understanding back to the data of understanding your audience so that you can communicate with them correctly. And then that helps you build up that type of engagement.
And are influencers more credible as individuals?
Mostly, I think yes, but there are some brands who are so strong. Like, for example, Glossier is a super strong brand. It was created by an influencer, so you could say that, okay, well, it's part and parcel.
Okay.
But they've done such an amazing job of creating a community-based, democratized beauty brand,
right,
so that now when Glossier says something, people do it. So they're like a new version of a brand whereby. So an old version of a brand, it was nothing to do with influencers, but now influencers are creating their own brands, so they're creating it in the mind's eye of what they know, which is how to influence, right?
Yes.
So they are creating like your Glossiers or the blonde salads or whatnot. So they're connecting a new generation of people because they know how to influence through a brand.
Is there an economic situation here where influencers essentially to convert from an influencer's suggestion is cheaper than it is through a traditional advertising means?
Yes, it is. Because for advertisers, they put in so many dollars to do something and they're not even sure if it's going to work sometimes. But because the influencer has the direct ear of who they're influencing, then there's that direct connection.
The direct ear and the direct response.
Yeah, exactly.
And a measurable ROI.
Yeah.
Actually, let's stay on the subject of ROI. That return on one's investment. How demanding is that from brands right in this moment?
Not as much as it will be soon.
Okay.
So for me, when I first started, I used to ask, okay, so do the brands ask for the return on investment? They're like, people would tell me, no, not so much, because they were just kind of feeling it out.
Right.
But now as time goes on and as data gets better and better and better, they will be asking more about the return on investment for spending those dollars for sure.
I've read a lot about in the beauty space, them being the leaders in this influencer game. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that they have been so successful?
Before you saw a very specific type of girl, a very specific type of model in your magazine, and now not only do you see different races, but you see within different races, there's all different. I'm black, but within being black, there's like loads of different skin tones that now I can identify with, and they really help you connect with the products the way that the brand can't do, because the brand can't employ 100 different people of all different skin tones to show you how to apply some makeup. Say if I go into NARS, I've got on my phone an Instagram account that I follow, and I walk around the store and I'm looking at the tutorials that I've seen that I've saved, and okay, cool, this is what I need to buy from NARS, I need to go to MAC, I need to buy this from MAC, and I'm not even going directly to the brand and seeing what the brand has told me to buy. I'm going from this girl because I know I'm going to want an amalgamation of different types of brands, so I go from the girl and then go to the shop and purchase.
How do you suggest the brand choose the girl, choose the influencer to align with when they want to promote their brand via this model?
Well, that goes on the engagement that the influencer's getting from their community, whether it is on YouTube, the blog, Instagram, whatever, who's engaging when they are creating that content. Before it was very much, people used to think, oh, if someone had loads of followers, then we just must go with them. But now it just makes sense to find somebody who's really authentic about your brand and people are trusting in what they're saying, regardless of how many followers they have.
From my perspective, I feel that this whole influencer culture is really disrupting the relationship that brands has had with celebrities in a way that celebrities has come along over the last decade or so and has completely disrupted the relationships that models have with brands. Break down to me your thoughts on this whole influencer celebrity matrix.
Yeah, I find this so interesting. Even now, when like this past Fashion Week, we had influencers actually walking in some of the shows.
And the Dolce & Gabbana, for example.
Yeah, Rebecca Minkoff, like they're now walking in shows, which I think is just so amazing. I think it's fantastic. And I feel like there's not going to be like necessarily the model, the celebrity, the influencer. It's not going to be like that, because now you've got like your Jordan Dunst, who's a model, but she's also an amazing influencer as well. Celebrity, Beyonce is also an influencer, and she will continue to be so.
Right.
So I don't really see them as those kind of free brackets as they were before, because before when we had some models, and also we had the Kate Mosses, the Naomi Campbells, and the celebrities. I know we had a time where we had like Paris Hilton, and we had Misha Barton or whatnot, right? And then you had, and they weren't even necessarily, they were doing the work in terms of their job, but they weren't necessarily producing content to influence.
Right.
But now the new influencers have to produce their own content to be an influencer. Before it was if the magazine picked you up, that was the content. It wasn't, you didn't produce the content.
Precisely.
Right? So now these influencers are actually producing the content, which helps them control more of their narrative, which makes them, I feel like, even more powerful.
How is all of this gonna play out?
As the influencers continue to grow and understand what they're doing and build on their businesses, they're going to create things for our future that they haven't even dreamed of that they're going to create yet. So we've only had kind of a few influencers that have kind of broken the mold and have created something really big, but I feel like it's only the beginning of what is going to happen, because they have such a respected, trusted audience to do anything that they dream of. So I feel like in 10, 20 years time, the businesses that we love and trust or whatever would have been founded from the influencers of today.
How do you see your actual business evolving in terms of the services that you may provide, or how this whole thing may just get disrupted around you and you have to pivot?
We all love being part of a community. All the apps that are being created now are about creating these communities, and I feel like the blogs will become those core communities around that core messaging that the influencer has created. So it may not be called a blog, but it will be those destinations that have these amazing pieces of curated, created content that the influencers create. I think in terms of us, I'm really big on, I'm a developer, and I'm very big on data and seeing how things are kind of changing, and we will always be able to pivot because it will continue to change and we will never want to be left behind. But I do feel like our generation are happy to pivot and happy to innovate because we see things change so fast all the time, which I think is like super interesting.
And will content remain king?
Oh yes, always. And it will just be how we consume it and what type of content that it is, whether it's image, video, text, whatever. But content will always remain king or queen.
Touche. Chloe, that was hugely insightful. Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed this.
Thanks for having me.